Looking at the Unit 3 review, question number 26, it's the median altitude perpendicular bisector question. They asked me to, eventually I'm going to be finding the median. They want me to find the midpoint of side BC right now because the median will go to the midpoint. So remember that the midpoint is the average of the x's. So you add them together, divide by 2, and it's the average of the y's. Add them together and divide by 2. In this particular case, the x's for BC are -4 and 6. If you divide that by 2, you get 1. And if you average the y's, they are 2 and 4. 2 plus 4 divided by 2 is 3. So the point 1, 3 is where that midpoint would occur. I know that's not really on my graph, but put it in there, okay? So there's my median. They asked me to write the equation of the median. So to write the equation, I can use point-slope form. I need a point it goes through. I can use either the -1, 6, or I can use the 1, 3. It doesn't matter. I think I'll use the -1, 6. So y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity x minus x1. And I'm using the point -1, 6. So x minus -1 and y minus 6. We can fill those values in. And then I need to find the slope between the point -1, 6 and 1, 3. So slope y2 minus y1, 3 minus 6, 1 minus -1. So that's going to be -3 over +2, -3 halves. So my final equation is y minus 6 is equal to -3 halves times x. Be careful, minus a negative is a plus 1. And that's the equation of my median. All right. They also asked me to write the equation of the line containing the altitude. Remember, the altitude would be perpendicular to the base, so it would come down something kind of like this. Now, it would be some work to try to calculate where that point takes place, where that point occurs, unlike the median question where it was easy to find a midpoint. But we do already have a point that the altitude goes through. So again, I'm going to do a point-slope equation. Y minus y1 is equal to the slope times x minus x1. And why not go ahead and put my point there, -1, 6, -1 in place of x1, and 6 in place of the y. And I just need the slope of the altitude. Remember that the slope of the altitude is this line is perpendicular to the base, so it's the opposite reciprocal slope of the base. So I can find the BC slope, that's the base, and I can take the opposite reciprocal, and that's going to give me the slope of the perpendicular. So we're going between the point B is -4, 2, and C is 6, 4, okay? y2 minus y1, that would be 4 minus 2. x2 minus x1, that's 6 minus -4. It ends up being 2 over 10, which is 1/5, okay? So that base has a slope of 1/5, which is pretty low slope. The altitude is going to have the opposite reciprocal slope. That would be -5 over 1, -5, which is a very steep, slightly negatively sloped line. Doesn't really look like it in the picture, but it should be what it is. So -5. So we have y minus 6 is equal to -5 times the quantity x plus 1 when we simplify it. All right? And finally, the perpendicular bisector. Okay? Remember, the perpendicular bisector will go through the midpoint at a perpendicular to the base. Doesn't necessarily go through the vertex. In fact, in this case, it isn't. So we're going to kind of combine those two things together. It's got to go through that point 1, 3. So I can fill that into my equation. It's got to go through the midpoint, 1, 3. So we can do x minus 1 and y minus 3. And it's got to be perpendicular to the base. Base has a slope of 1/5, so it's the opposite reciprocal slope. It's -1, -5 over 1 or -5. So the perpendicular bisector equation, y minus 3 is equal to -5 times the quantity x minus 1. And that is my perpendicular bisector.